Hi, Mr. Parker.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Um,
Excited to chat with you.
so why did you want to be a teacher? Did you have a favorite teacher when you were in school?
I had the privilege of going to a really great independent school, a lot like the country school. I went to an all-boys school in Washington, D.C. called St. Albans School. I definitely did not think about being a teacher when I was there. I can assure you that. Um, but then but I did have a few great teachers. The teacher I think that resonated with me the most was Mr. Suitor was his name. So it's Suitor. And he was a high school history teacher I had. And he was a former mailman and he had a great mustache and was just a super interesting, caring, nice guy with a good sense of humor. Somehow, even as a junior in high school, he had a class, India, that was like mapping the world, and I was super into geography. And so I still have this framed map that I made of the world from his class. I think when I ultimately decided to be a teacher, which was maybe in my early 20s, I thought back to Mr. Suitor and I was like, just being a good person and connecting with kids and caring about them goes a long way.
So, what schools did you work at before you came to the country school?
So my first job in education was in outdoor education. So like when you go to Echo Hill. So I worked for the Cape Cod School District and I lived in Truro, Massachusetts, which is Truro. So it was fun to do outdoor ed because I got to teach the same thing every week to different groups of kids. So I could get better as a teacher. Um, in schools, I then left outdoor education and I worked at Boys Latin School in Baltimore for 5 years. Then I worked at Calvert School in Baltimore for 10 years from 2010 to 2020. And I taught science there and then became like the middle school dean of students. And then I was in Colorado for the last 4 years as a middle school principal at Dawson School, Dawson.
Have you worked at any other jobs besides being a teacher?
I have pretty much been in education my entire career. I did run my love for outdoor education. I did run my own summer camp for 12 years, which was typically groups of kids from the schools I was working at. Um, but it was my own company.
Okay.
And so I'd be able to spend most of my summers, in Colorado or New Hampshire leading hiking trips. And that taught me a lot about, um, everything from like making websites for my business to doing like the business, the marketing and the accounting side of it, which I enjoy doing, but I enjoy working with kids more than I enjoy those types of things. So that's pretty much it. I pretty much have mostly only worked in jobs with kids though, India.
And then there were a lot of long-term heads at the country school. Do you know any of them? And then what were your thoughts about stepping into their shoes?
That's a great question. So hey, so rule number one of being a head of school is don't follow a long time head of school because everyone compares you to what Mr. Muffson did, for
I
instance.
said my brother does that a lot.
He
Mr.
does that a lot, yeah.
Muffson did this.
Exactly. And I've seen that in schools. Like, A, it needs to be a good fit and it needs to be the right time. So I do have a very close relationship with Miss Brune. I've known Miss Brune since 2011. My wife worked for her at Roland Park Country School, but I did not know her that well until I got the job like a year and a half ago. And then she and I became very close, and we still are very close. And then Mr. Muffson, I met 7 or 8 years ago. And since I've started the job, he and I have become very close too. I had dinner with Miss Brune 2 weeks ago, and I talked on the phone with Mr. Muffson last week for an hour. So I joke that like I get to follow Miss Brune and Mr. Muffson, but I'm actually not following them, right? Because Miss Brune
Right.
was an interim head of school,
Yeah.
and I'm far enough away from Mr. Muffson that he and I he's very excited that I'm leading the country school. So I'm really fortunate to have them as friends.
And then how's the job going? Are there any surprises?
Like I feel blessed every day, honestly. One that the school, I mean, first off, like starting the day with handshaking,
Uh-huh.
like a lot of people wouldn't want to start their day that way, but it makes me so happy to greet all the kids every day. There was a while it was tough at the beginning of the year when I didn't know everyone's names. I felt bad.
Mhm.
Uh,
But then you
yeah,
sort of, like, learn them, like,
yeah.
as you're, like, handshaking.
So now I'm learning all the parents' names. I'm freaking them out when they come up, and I let fun. It's fun that the kindergartners walk in with the eighth graders, and the kindergarten eighth grade buddies know each other and walk in together, and parents come
Mhm.
in. You get to see the kids coming in with their projects or their uniforms, or see
Uh-huh.
them the day after a game. I got to visit with Miss Brune a couple times last
Yeah.
year. I got to see how she interacted with the kids, and it's a really great opportunity to start the day and have all the kids feel known. Overall, though, like what has blown me away is like how inviting the school is, how amazing, the teachers are all very caring.
Mm.
And the people here work really hard all the time to support each other and the kids, which you'd think would be the case in every school, but it's not necessarily the case in
Yeah.
every school. Um, so like I guess just like the feeling of like love is like everywhere at this school. It's not perfect,
Yeah, nothing's perfect.
nothing's perfect, but I think people walk into our school and they, can feel the love right when they walk in. And that's pretty special. And that was here before I was here, so that's very humbling too.
What's the main thing you'd like to accomplish in your job?
Well, I think the school has a tradition of long tenured heads of school. I'm reminded of that every time I walk down that hallway and I see Mr. Muffson's picture and I see Miss Start's portrait. Um, and at 45 years old, even if I stay, if I stayed 42 years, I'd be 87 years old when I retired. So I probably won't stay that long. So what I know is that I've only worked at schools where the head of school has been there for, maybe I was there at the beginning of the year, but every head of school I've worked for, India, has been at their school for like 10 to 15 years, if not longer. And you can't really, like, I feel like we've accomplished a lot this year, but you can't really leave your mark on a school if you're there for less than 10 years.
Mhm.
For me, this is the rest of my career. What that looks like is I don't envision the country school ever adding a high school, to be honest with you. I do think there's a pretty good chance, maybe in 5 years, 10 years, that we have like an infant 1, 2, 3-year-old program.
Oh,
Uh,
so
I already have the name of it. It would be like, um, Cougar Cubs would be the name of the daycare facility.
uh,
And just, continue to like own that idea of like the 90th anniversary, which was tradition meets tomorrow, of like honoring all the traditions of the school, but also like,
yeah,
like Stevie's at robotics right now, right?
yeah,
And like we desperately needed a robotics team.
yeah.
So just filling in the gaps with better programming everywhere and ensuring the legacy of the school lives on.
And then less related to the school, what does your wife do for, like, a job?
My wife is a counselor. She's a social worker. And she worked, like I was saying, she worked at Roland Park Country School as a school counselor for Miss Broom. Miss Broom actually hired her in 2011 on Mother's Day 2012.
Oh,
So it was when Calvi was like 6 months old. So my wife had been waiting to hear from Miss Brune for probably a couple of weeks. And then it was a Sunday because Mother's Day is a Sunday, and the phone rang and it was Miss Brune. And I looked at my wife and I said, this better be a job offer because it's your first Mother's Day. And it was a job offer. So my wife worked at Roland Park for Miss Brune for like 9 years. And then 2 years in Colorado at Dawson, where I worked. She worked there as well. And then 3 years ago, she started her own practice and she works mostly with teenagers like you and, high school kids and college kids as like a personal therapist. And she loves it. And she works on Tillman. She also is on Tillman too, one day a week doing that work too. So she knows Tillman Island really well.
and what do you and your family think of Easton?
We love it. It's a magical place. Um, I love it because I grew up in a city and I'm kind of done with cities, honestly.
Mhm.
So I love the small town feel. I love that it has that we're so close to DC and Baltimore. I love the fact that the growing up here, whether it's you all like going to Tillman Island for the weekend, right? Or my son going to Henry and Alan Clark's house and going out on a boat and fishing off a boat, which he had never done before he moved here, and they do it every day. Or like parents that are their jobs are to be watermen or fix boats or design boats. You know, it's just like it's so cool that so many people that live in Talbot County are like connected to the land is really unique. You know, my kids are super happy at the country school, which was it's a big in when you're in education, like we moved a lot. We moved they're going to go to a different school for high school, obviously, because we don't have a high school, right? So that means that Calvi and Witt are both going to be going to their fourth private school because they started at Calvert in Baltimore. Witt was even in pre-K that first year. They went to Colorado for 4 years. Now they're here, and then they have to choose a high school too. So the advantage is they get to choose a high school and not have their dad as the head of school, which is makes them be just normal kids. Uh, but then the other side of that is they've had to go through a lot of change.
Yeah.
Fortunately for them, I'm from Maryland and my parents live here. My brothers live here. And they lived here originally. So it felt like coming home. And also the country school is designed to be like Calvert School in Baltimore. They're very similar schools. So it feels very normal for them. Though Calvi did had no, I don't know if you know this, she had no uniform last year in sixth grade. She could wear like pajama pants to school. Um, and now she obviously has to put on her uniform. But I think all of us love it, you know, love it. I love eating crabs. That's like my favorite thing to eat. I've had crabs like 7 times this year already, India.
Well, I think that's it. Um, Thank you for sitting down and doing this interview.
Awesome. Sure. Yeah. All right. Great talking to you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for asking.